So, Gimmick is rather famous for two reasons. One, it's legendarily difficult, and two, the original Famicom cart will cost you a king's ransom if you want to physically own one. And that issue of cost was rather mitigated a few years back when they released the new special edition of Gimmick. And now we have Gimmick 2 from the same developers that did the special edition. And as you can see, it's had a graphical touch-up from its 8-bit days. You couldn't have done this stuff back in the Famicom or NES's heyday, of course, not to this visual level anyway. But is it worth playing? Well, I've been putting it through its paces, and I'm going to say yes, but this isn't a game for everyone. Like the original Gimmick, you play as a little green blob creature called Yumataro, who can run and who can jump and who has a single superpower of summoning a star that can be thrown at enemies or used to trigger switches. Basically, it's the way that you interact with the world. And the key thing here is that whereas a lot of platform games might start you out with one ability and then you learn another or you get a new suit or whatever, all very Mario-esque of course, that's not what Gimmick 2 does. You have the star, and that's it. It travels along some predictable arcs depending on whether or not you're jumping and throwing it down or throwing it with momentum, but it's the only power you've got, which means all the game's puzzles and platform sections rely on that star power and nothing else. The other thing, of course, that Gimmick games should be is reasonably tough. The original is legendarily difficult, and yeah, that's true of Gimmick 2 as well. You can expect that you will die a whole bunch while you work out the momentum of a jump or how a puzzle fits together, or in more limited cases, how to defeat certain bosses, although you'll inevitably lose far, far more lives just to falling on spikes. Spikes are Yumataro's core enemy in this game. Everything wants to knock you into spikes, and lots of the game's levels are built around spike avoidance. And the thing with Gimmick 2 is that you are going to die a lot. Working out how to actually manage the game's puzzles and the game's jumping mechanics and how all of this ties together, especially as you get into some of the later levels where this all becomes more complicated, is all part of the fun for some. Totally. Some people are going to bounce hard off this one simply because it isn't easy and you will die quite a bit. As you can see here, I'm not awful at Gimmick 2. I'm far from the world's best player, but I died a lot. And if you let Gimmick 2 sink its hooks into you, this can become quite compelling because that kind of release of stress that you get when you finally get it right can become a really compelling gameplay hoop. Same as any other really tough game. You feel that sense of satisfaction because, hey, I finally did it. I finally didn't die on that jump or got that throw of the star right. Visually, the upgrade is lovely. I actually really like it. You can put Yumataro in a bunch of different collectible suits, but these do not change his core powers or abilities in any real way. But the visuals are really nice hand-drawn stuff. Likewise, the audio's really nicely handled. Of course, it suggests a completely different, much simpler game in play, but it all hangs together really nicely. On the Switch version that I've tested, the load times are reasonably low. There's an awful lot to like here, as long as you like that kind of challenging gameplay loop. That's really where the value or lack of value for Gimmick 2 is going to lie for you. I should point out that the copy that I am playing was provided to me by the publisher, so I've not spent my own money on it. But equally, I'll point out I actually do own a personally purchased copy of the special edition of Gimmick for the Switch, and it's a game that I really like, and I think this is actually in some ways better. Not just visually better, but arguably a little bit more accessible. It is a little bit less punishing than original Gimmick. The checkpoints are a little bit closer between each other, and the layouts are a little bit easier to kind of work out what's going on. It's a little bit more forgiving, while still retaining that legendary kind of, yes, this is a challenging game to get through. It may not take you forever to get through it, but getting through it and collecting everything to get the best possible ending, yeah, that'll take you a decent amount of time and give you a decent amount of value, as long as this kind of game is the style that you already appreciate. You probably already know that already. If you like tough, challenging games with a fairly simple gameplay hook, then Gimmick 2 is highly recommended. Thanks for watching.